Good morning. This is Pat O'Connell. I'm calling to order the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission regular open meeting. It's Thursday, October 3rd at 10 a.m. We're here at the Bochum Building. Mr. Cameron, can you call the roll?
Present.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Present.
All commissioners are present and you have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Okay, so next is consideration and approval of the agenda. Starts with announcement from OGC.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I needed to make one fix on the agenda. If I could just find which one it is.
A2.
It is consent agenda A2. Yes, thank you. And so the docket number is correct, but the title of the matter is not correct. Where everything is correct except for where it says the Moraline transmission project. That should be the Crossroads Hobbs Roadrunner transmission project. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that change, are there any other changes we'd like to have to the agenda?
Chairman, I do have one change. Thank you to our general counsel. I was gonna make the same revision and staying on the same item. I would like to move that to the regular action items section.
Okay. And looking at the list, I don't see that Ms. Lang has any other cases. Should we just put it at the end of regular action then?
That works.
Okay. Commissioner Ellison, did you have any changes?
No, thank you.
Okay, so I move that we proceed with the agenda that's posted with two changes. Replacing Moraline in the caption of consent item number 2 with Crossroads Hobbs Roadrunner and moving that agenda to the end of the regular action items list.
Second.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellison.
Aye.
The motion to approve the agenda with two changes passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Next up, public comment. Do we have anybody here today and with us who wants to make public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Rodriguez.
Oh, Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone signed up online for public comment.
Okay, so no one in person and no one signed up online for public comment. So we'll move to the next item, which is employee of the month. I believe Commissioner Ellison, you have that honor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It is indeed my pleasure to announce the Employee of the Month at the PRC. That individual is Mr. Mark Tupler. Mr. Tupler has been employed with the PRC for 5 years as a senior economist in the utility division. He, from the very start, took over the role of dealing with capital structure and return on equity in rate cases, and for some time was the only staff expert witness in this area. He also currently represents the PRC on Southwest Power Pool's cost allocation working group. And that is, of course, in addition to his other caseload responsibilities here at the PRC. He is dedicated and reliable, and his contribution is much appreciated. Congratulations, Mr. Tupler.
Yeah, indeed, congratulations and thanks for that. Commissioner Aguilera, did you have any final?
Congratulations as well, and just logistics. How does the belt thing work? Does he have to wrestle Kevin for it, or?
I think Mr. Getco, are you in an OFT with it? Because I don't see it. Yes. Okay. Next up is announcements, Office of General Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick one, which is giving the general public a heads up on upcoming meeting dates around the holidays. So instead of having a meeting on Thanksgiving Day, which would be wildly unpopular, I'd imagine, we're going to have it on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So that'll be the 26th. And we'll do the same time, same place. And then in December, we have a meeting scheduled for the 26th, the day after Christmas, again, likely to be pretty unpopular. So instead, we're going to do it the week before on December 19th. And of course, we'll, do the notice and agenda and everything, but I just want to give everybody a early heads up for planning purposes.
Great, thank you. And then one of my long-term goals is that we can figure out our calendar 12 months in advance, maybe, but I understand these changes. And then just for transparency, that these dates were vetted through the OGC office. So we tried to look at statutory deadlines and those type of things. So apologies if you had plans on December 19th. Okay, so then next up is announcements from commissioners. I've got a recitation I need to read into the record, so I'll do that now. On Friday, September 20th, 2024, the commission met in two closed meetings, which were closed pursuant to NMSA 1978, 10-15-1H3, which is deliberations by a public body in connection with an administrative adjudicatory proceeding. I affirm for the record that the matters discussed in the closed meetings were limited only to those specified in the notices and agendas for those meetings, specifically deliberations regarding recommended decisions in two cases, docket number 22-00058 UT, which is the matter of Public Service Company New Mexico's application for grid modernization plan, and docket number 24-00113 UT, in the matter of the application of El Paso Electric Company for approval to implement a time varying rate pilot program. I further affirm that no final actions were taken at either closed meeting. Then beyond recitation, it's interesting we don't have any hearings or any of the things I like to announce between now and next open meeting, and next open meeting will be 2 weeks from now at regular time and place. Commissioners, did you have any other announcements you wanted to make?
No, thank you. I do not.
I don't either, thank you.
Great. First up on the agenda then for voting is approval of prior meeting minutes. We have minutes for the September 5th, 2024 regular open meeting. Any changes or discussion on that item?
I didn't find any issues with those minutes, Mr. Chair.
I don't have any changes either.
Great. Yeah, I just fixed one of our bazillion acronyms that we use, and I edited that in Word Effects. So I didn't have any substantive changes either. So anyway, I move for approval of the September 5th, 2024 regular open meeting minutes.
I second.
Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Ellison? Commissioner O'Connell, Commissioner Aguilera.
Aye.
The motion to approve the minutes passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. So next for consideration is consent action. Just a reminder, there are 3 items on the consent agenda as agreed to in this meeting. So we have utility matter item 1, 3, and 4 as the agenda got posted. Any discussion or question on those items?
None for me, thank you.
I don't have any comments either. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, I will move for approval of the potential orders proposed on the consent action item agenda.
I second.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilera.
Aye.
The motion to approve the consent action items and the orders that with those items passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. So moving on to regular action items, the first one is case 24001388 UT. Appearing as Ms. Erica Avila Stefans this morning is Alejandro Redick y Martinez. Take it away, Alejandro.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, I am not Ms. Stefans, but I'll be doing my best to fill in for her this morning. As you're aware, every year a docket is open for the purpose of accepting applications for broadband program support. This year, there are 17 program applications before the Commission after a couple withdrawals. What is before the Commission today is a potential order that would grant funding to all the applications before the Commission. And unless the Commission has any questions, I'll go ahead and describe the order and the legal framework. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is start big picture and then address 2 more minor issues. So in terms of the big picture, the Rural Telecommunications Act requires the Commission to implement a broadband program to support universal broadband internet access. Commission rules set out minimum requirements for programs to be eligible for this funding. And what this order does is find that all of the applications before the Commission meet those minimum requirements. There's enough program support funds to go around to approve all of those, that granting these applications would move the state closer to universal broadband service. And because of those things, the order grants all the applications for broadband program support. So that's kind of the big picture in terms of what the order is doing. In terms of those minor issues, one of them is whether the Commission can consider an application that ran into some filing difficulties. That is the Windstream Cordova project application. Ultimately, this order finds that there's good cause for the Commission to consider the application. So the order does consider it, and it is one of those programs that is approved for funding. The other minor issue is a motion to intervene that was filed by NMPRC earlier this week. This order takes no action on that motion. And the reasons for the inaction in the order is NMPRC is an applicant, so they wouldn't need to file a motion to intervene to become a party in this case. And the motion to intervene isn't asking beyond participating for the Commission to do anything. To the extent that NMPRC or any other interested party wants to ask the Commission to reconsider any of the grants of funds, they can do so following the process that's established by our rule. So here we're approving program funds, but there's a process for reconsideration that will follow. So they can do that. For those reasons, I recommend the Commission adopt this order.
Thank you for that presentation, especially the recent update. So Commissioners, do you have any questions, discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Martinez, thank you for that presentation. This order does not explicitly deny NMPRC's motion to intervene. Is that correct?
That's correct. And what the order does, essentially in a footnote, is explains, NMPRC, they're party to this proceeding because they filed an application. And to the extent they're seeking relief, potentially in the form of, asking the commission to reconsider one of these awards, they're going to be able to do so along with any interested party in the process that's established by the rule.
Okay, thank you. And I see if they're reading this order carefully and read the footnotes, they'll understand, but wouldn't it be more clear to explicitly deny the motion to intervene?
So we could potentially deny it, though I think it was filed 2 days ago, and in theory, other parties to this proceeding could have an opportunity to respond. So given that, whether that motion is approved or not, it's not going to have any bearing here. I don't think there's any reason to do that in this order.
Could it be denied by single signature order later after respondents have had a chance to comment?
I believe so. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think a motion to intervene would fall into something that we could do via single signature order, especially given the fact that they're already a party. So the relief that they're asking for, they don't have to ask for.
Right. I understand. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your explanations, and I just want to reemphasize the positive impact that this program has on broadband, especially as we try to connect areas that are rural and don't have other options. And so we had fewer applications this year, and we're in a situation where the funding that is available can fund all of the projects. And, I'm not exactly sure what to make of that. I hope that maybe that means that we're making a lot of progress with broadband in these areas. And, I think it also means that there are other sources of funding. OBAE, for example, has a lot of funding. And so, I think it would be worth taking a closer look to see what the reasons are that we received fewer projects. And with the goal of, optimizing these funds and making sure that we could connect as many New Mexicans as possible. So just wanted to note that. I also wanted to make a clarification from something we discussed previously. I think, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 or 3 meetings ago, but if we don't use all of the funds, the surcharge that is charged to customers is reduced. So basically the funding that we are awarding is what is determining how much that charge is going to be. So previously I was sort of thinking about this as, if we don't fund one of these projects and don't use all of the funds, that money goes to waste. But it's not necessarily the case, because what would happen is that the surcharge would just be lower. So I wanted to clarify that as a discussion that we had before. And then one final thought is, we have an obligation to process all of these applications, and we have staff looking at them. We also rely on the parties involved to raise any concerns, and it is disruptive to the process if somebody comes in at the 11th hour. These concerns could have been noted earlier and potentially resulted in a different order here. So I won't belabor that, but I would encourage the parties and to come in as soon as possible. I would also, ask my fellow commissioners here to consider including a comment deadline for these projects. I think that would clean up the process so that we don't have this situation where we're potentially faced with facts that have changed, 1 or 2 days before the meeting where we're approving these projects. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or concerns?
Just to pile on one more thing. I mean, what Commissioner Aguilera said is true, that we have funding available. Last year, it was a very competitive process. This year, in the interesting situation of having funding to cover the projects, I think staff, we all did our job to look at these projects to make sure they were all worthy of funding. But this is a competitive process, so there's a lot in the final order about Windstream's Cordova project. And so similar to get your comments in a timely manner, if you missed the deadline for, I realize this was a technical issue and project is on the deck to be approved. That's the kind of thing that if this had been competitive, it might have worked against that project. So all project developers, just mind in the, dot your I's, cross your T's, because this normally is a very competitive process. So having said that, I'm not hearing, is there any, well, I'll go ahead and just move for approval of the final order as drafted and note your comment about comment deadline. I think we made a lot of process improvement from last year to this year, just because we're not up against the deadline with a special meeting to approve this project. So agree, there's probably more improvement that can happen. But anyway, motion is approval of the order as proposed.
So moved.
Okay, so I think we got a motion and a second. Any more comments, discussion before we vote?
Yeah, I might just chime in just to say, it is unfortunate that the Smith-Bagley projects in the Navajo Nation, weren't able to participate in this round. And I agree. On one hand, it's nice we can fund everyone. On the other hand, it's really not what our goal should be. We really do want more competition. So hopefully that'll work out next time.
Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellison.
Aye.
The motion to approve the order as written passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is proposed order opening an inquiry on regarding grid readiness and economic development. We'll start with presentation from Mr. Redigi Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you just mentioned, this is a potential docket that concerns grid readiness and economic development. Initially, I had collaborated with the chair to develop this draft, but I've discussed it with each of you, your fellow commissioners, and incorporated that feedback. In general, this inquiry is intended to assess first whether new or existing high demand customers are having difficulty getting the service they need from electric utilities in a timely fashion. And then second, if that is the case, to assess what the options are for the commission to help address that issue. So in terms of mechanics, what this order would do is open a docket on the topic, solicit bench requests from PNM, EP, and SPS, and it then asks for comment on those same bench requests from staff and any interested party. Happy to answer any questions, but I thought I'd keep my comments brief to allow all of you to share your observations.
Thank you for that. As you mentioned, you and I had started this discussion and it led to what we're looking at here today. For me, that journey began when I attended a site readiness conversation back in August. So they're talking about how having sites that are ready for things like solar manufacturing plants are important in the national competition for new jobs. So part of that conversation was people talking about what causes the process from we know we have a site to it's ready for you to build your widgets can take an amount of time. And concern was that something like a PRC approval could be the limiting step in that timeline process. So I really walked away from that questioning why people believe that's true. So that was the initial question for me, and then working on it and looking at other filings that have happened in other jurisdictions about being ready for electrification, helped develop this concept for me anyway, working with, and I appreciate your work, Mr. Martinez, putting this together. And then all this stuff, just, so that's context, what started it. What we're really after, or what I'm really after, is just understanding what the challenge is, and then also trying to figure out how we maintain our duty to make sure that investments are made wisely and that money on customers' bills is reasonable in this world of we need to be in a hurry. So there was a big article in the Business Outlook, now Albuquerque Journal, on Monday, which didn't know that was coming, but it did a good job of explaining just what it is I'm trying to get at here. So in that article, P&M talks about Mesa del Sol. My experience is for 20 years, going back as far as Shot Solar, that's a site that site developers have been looking at. And there are other sites that I know have some development, like we took the tour to the Meta data center in Los Lunas. That's another location that people look at quite a bit. Arrowhead Center down in Las Cruces is another thing that I know has existed for decades and is potentially ready to accept new job creating activity down there. So because those sites have existed, and because as P&M points out, they've had requests to look at those sites many times over many years. So what that tells me is utilities roughly know when a load of a certain size shows up, what's going to need to happen to make those sites site ready. And for us, it's really about electricity. That was the main complaint. It sounds like gas can happen once you've got electricity figured out. So that's why the focus of this is electricity. I will point out this potential order gives any party opportunity to respond. And so if gas company wants to add their voice to this conversation, you will have that opportunity, but the inquiry asks for responses from electric utilities. But again, in the Albuquerque Journal article, P&M says that many years of pre-planning and pre-work collaboration has gone into looking at what it would take to develop sites, and looking at sizes from 5 megawatts to 285 megawatts. So one of the things that slows things down at the PRC is filing with no context. So if we're starting from scratch on what it is you're asking for, everybody's going to have to take extra time just to figure out what is it that we're looking at. I don't know if we can get all the way to what water utilities call a golden ticket, which is an availability statement, but maybe there's some space in the middle. So utilities know what sites people are looking at. They know what infrastructure is going to be needed to develop those sites. Let's get that process started so we're not sitting here with oh my gosh, we've got to do this right now, and you are the reason that the schedule is what it is. So that's the first step, is just let's see what the utilities are doing. That's a regulator responsibility. And then the other is let's think about how we can be cooperative in these pursuits. So anyway, that was a long speech, but I just thought it'd be worth it to say what started this and then the context of what I've been doing when I've been looking at the edits that have come in, and appreciate your work. I appreciate the edits. I think they were all added to let's have a better inquiry. So anyway, open the floor for any other questions or discussion that anybody might have on this before we decide whether to vote it or not.
Chairman, well, first, I want to thank you for putting this on the agenda. You know, my first thought when I saw this, to be quite frank, is concern about affordability. But because when I see this, I see we need to build more infrastructure. And affordability has just been on my mind with, you know, all of the other initiatives that we have. But I agree with issuing this inquiry. You know, we often see in our dockets that New Mexicans are, you know, 40% or more of New Mexicans are low income. And so that's where, you know, the concern for affordability creeps in. But I also know that in order to improve that situation, we need to invest in ourselves. And how the PRC is involved in that is exactly, you know, this situation is making sure that our utilities are ready to bring in new businesses. And then hopefully we don't keep talking about 40+% New Mexicans being considered low income. And so, you know, thank you. I think that being ready also means being proactive. And I think that's what this inquiry does. And so I'm happy to support it and, you know, welcome the input from other stakeholders in addition to the 3 electric IOUs and staff.
Great, thank you.
I'm also in support of this inquiry. I asked that some language be added to cover the requests of some large oil and gas customers who want to have grid power to their processes and have expressed some concerns over the amount of time it takes to actually do that, to get a commitment from the utility for extending grid power to their processes. A couple of weeks ago, I met with the New Mexico Large Customers Group, and this concern was expressed to me. So, in the spirit of looking into and better understanding the process around connecting new customers, I think it's also appropriate to give consideration to these customers. You know, I guess my initial reaction was that there seems to be I guess 2 sets of issues. One is the connection of the customer, and the other is the bulk system resources. And you know, I just wonder if there's some misunderstanding around the interconnection of the customers, because certainly that's normally not something that the PRC would get involved in, connecting a 500 kilowatt customer. You know, there's no certificate of convenience and necessity or anything like that for connecting these kind of customers. But, certainly, on the large bulk system side, we do have an IRP process and competitive procurement. But, I'm certainly interested to look into this topic more and to really hear out these specific concerns.
Great, thank you. And I think what you'll see is this was written broad enough that people can weigh in on the, concerns you have, and utilities are here, so hopefully they listened, and we'll see what we get back. We tried to craft it so that we were specific enough with sizes or ranges to reduce confusion over what we're asking for. But I think what you've described helps, so. Having heard the comments and discussion, and I'd say let's move for approval of this order opening the inquiry docket.
I second.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilar.
Aye.
The motion to approve the order passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez. Okay, so next up is a series of cases, starting with 24-0094 UT that will be led by Mr. Fisk. So settle in, Mr. Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. So beginning with docket number 24-94-UT in the matter of potential amendments to the community solar rule. I've discussed this with each of you. So I'll keep this short. We have two potential orders based on two options that the commission provided in its proposed rule issued with the order issuing the NOPR in this matter. Those are concerning potential amendments to the portion of the rule, section of the rule that pertains to the statewide capacity cap for the entire program. The commission undertook this rulemaking and limited it to the issue of the cap, and then also the self-attestation provision, because the commission wanted to complete this before November 1st, because November 1st is a deadline set in the Community Solar Act for two things. One is providing a report to the legislature concerning the statewide program so far, the progress that's been made, et cetera. And then also to consider the cap. And so since the initial cap that was set in the act itself for the sort of initial phase of 200 megawatts, that's set in the act, and it was also adopted in the rule. To consider any changes to that requires a rulemaking, except that if the commission adopts option A here, then it can be considered in a non-rulemaking proceeding, when we get the review done. Anyhow, so that's why we did just this limited, the commission did this limited rulemaking for limited amendments. And today I have on the agenda a proposed order for opening a separate docket, opening up the entire community solar rule for potential amendments. So among the two options that were provided in the proposed with the proposed rule and the NOPR for statewide capacity program caps, there's an option A, and I provide you first an order adopting option A, which would be to say that the initial cap of 200 megawatts will remain effective until the commission has completed a review, and the commission will review information that hasn't been received yet. What we know so far is that we had a very strong interest from subscriber organizations, because we've gone through the selection process for project proposals. We were limited by the 200 megawatt cap, and we actually received about 1,700 megawatts of capacity that was applied for. So there's a lot of demand there. But under option A, the commission would say that it's going to review, among other things, the demand for subscriptions to the facilities, the levels of low-income subscriber participation, making sure that facilities are going to be able to meet the 30% requirement. Each facility has to be 30% low-income subscriber, and the overall level of generation capacity that's actually built and operational. So even though we know a lot about subscriber organization demand, developer demand, there's other information I think that the commission may want to consider, and option A would do that. So that the 200 would remain in place until we reach the end of that review. And then option B would go ahead and raise the cap to 300 megawatts. And the cap would be, that entire 300 megawatts would be for a future round of requests for applications and for selection of projects. So that would be an additional 300 megawatts, which would essentially add to the 200 megawatt cap for a total of 500, but it'd be 300 for the next round. That's option B. And I'm not going to go through all the comments. I know that you read the comments, or I provided detailed summaries of those comments. They were, let's say, almost evenly split between option A and option B. I think, of course, once again, mainly the utilities and staff and some other commenters saying, let's go with option A because we do need more information. And then some other participants, such as the Coalition for Community Solar, I hope I remember the A. I don't remember the A, sorry. But and the CCSA and REIA, the Renewable Energy Industries Association, were and various participants in the program, and Prosperity Works, were in favor of option B, going up to 300 megawatts, effective November 1st. So I will, with that, I don't know if I really kept it brief. I don't know, maybe not. I may be not able to keep it brief, but I hope that I did. So I'll take any questions.
No, thank you. I appreciate that presentation. You gave good explanation of the two things that we have to look at, and then what the comments were on that. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Fisk or broadly on this?
Mr. Fisk, I had a question around the self-attestation provision here. So would the program retain any ability to audit customers who self-attest, or would that not be possible under the language that's being proposed?
We're going to have to take a look at the language. The section that the commission would be changing if it adopted that change does not include a provision for auditing. So I don't believe that there's anywhere else in the
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I see it's not in there. I'm just wondering if the fact that it's not in the rule, would that preclude it from taking place?
I would say, no, because the rule doesn't provide for every sort of possible inquiry or proceeding that the commission might undertake. Actually, I think the way that an audit or it would come about would not be an audit directly of a subscriber, but the rule does provide for elsewhere in the subscriber organization regulations that the commission that the records of the subscriber organization be kept, be made available to the commission upon request. So if the commission wanted to look at who the subscriber organization has signed up, and there's been guidance provided by Incline, the program administrator, to retain that sort of information. That subscriber organization should do that, so that if we ask to see it, then
Right.
but it's true. What they would have is a self-attestation. So
They would just have a list of people who self-attested.
that's true. Yes. They'd have the attestations, but you're right. There wouldn't be any way to bring the subscriber before for the commission to have crossed that directly, because the rule only regulates subscriber organizations and utilities, because that's just clearly allowed by the act. There are protections for subscribers, but it doesn't give us the commission authority over the subscribers.
Okay. And I guess I'm wondering, was it discussed whether there, any other state programs that simply allow self-attestation? I mean, certainly it's not true of LIHEAP or a number of other programs.
Yes, there were a number of states that were cited.
A number of other states.
Yes, a number
Okay.
of other states
Okay.
that were cited by multiple commenters, and you find that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's good enough.
Well, I don't have any questions about the orders, but I think maybe now this is a good time to talk about the two options. And I could go ahead and start because I'm responsible for asking Mr. Fisk to write up the second option that expands the cap. So, Mr. Fisk, you noted that the comments are about evenly split. I do want to note that we have, by my count, 9 commenters who support expanding the cap, and the 3 electric IOUs and staff who oppose it. So I think I think, if we're looking at how much support, I have trouble saying that they're evenly split, because I do see a lot of commenters here asking us to expand the cap. And here are some of the reasons why I asked for this option. I think commenters noted that expanding the cap now provides certainty to the developers, to customers, to the utilities about where the commission is going. There is momentum here that expanding the cap now would continue, and that momentum is fragile right now because we've experienced so much in terms of delays, but there is momentum, and I think that expanding the cap now shows everybody where we intend to go. There's one where, well, a couple of questions that we can ask about whether we have the right level of interest to support expanding the cap by 300 megawatts. If we go by the number of bids that we had in the last round, there is enough. I think, I forget what the exact number of megawatts we had in the last round. I read in here 1.3 gigawatts, 1.7 gigawatts. Either way you go, it's more than enough to support. I think you can question how much demand from customers we have for this, because we don't really know that yet. And I would say that's a valid question. But I think we hurt the program more if we don't expand the cap already in this order. And the other concern that I had, which was somewhat alleviated with additional language that was proposed, is that if we don't raise the cap now, we're creating a gap, a pretty large gap, where the next round of projects would not be built until at least 2028. And I'm concerned that waiting that long would remove some of this momentum and not be in the spirit of the Community Solar Act. So, the other thing that I'll mention as a final item is MNerd provided comments that I thought were very helpful here, and they also noted that there is this Solar for All grant that is providing the state $156 million. They're concerned that if we don't expand the cap now, that they will not be able to use that money for these projects. And I don't want to eliminate that possibility. Those were my reasons for suggesting this option B. And I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners for responses.
Yeah, thanks. In fact, I was looking forward to this part of the discussion because I can see myself voting for either one of these orders. But you did bring up a point that actually hits at the heart of one of my questions. So, Mr. Fisk, is there a direct link between raising the cap and issuing the next RFP?
Mr. Chairman, the cap would allow for the commission would need to raise the cap to undertake the next RFP, or I would call it an application solicitation, because it's not technically an RFP. It's not under the procurement code, but yes. It would need to be raised. Please go ahead.
I was gonna say that matches my understanding that raising the cap now just means a step that we would have to take before issuing the next RFP's been resolved. And so then my view or philosophy on this community solar is it's going to grow organically to the size it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So really the emphasis is on let's get it moving so that it can start growing. And then I was going through the comments and trying not to, I say, well, this many were on this side and this many were on that side. I was trying to come up with what are the strongest argument for keeping the cap where it's at, and what's the strongest argument for raising it. And frankly, a little disappointed in that search because I found a lot of arguments that weren't convincing. So for example, developers saying, hey, we develop projects, raise the cap so we can develop more projects. You know, that developers asking me to tell them to do what it is they do didn't feel that convincing. And then the other side of that, maybe even worse, was just came across as utilities whining about the need to do the job. So there's I did see a lot in there about communicating that we care about the growth and the health of community solar. So that's why I inserted in option A, a statement that maybe connects, maybe it doesn't, about whether we raise the cap or not. We're committed to safe, reliable, healthy growth of community solar. So no matter what my vote is today, I don't want that to be confusing. Also welcome in MNERD to the conversation. It was welcome to see comments from them. And I agree that argument that there's money on the table that needs to go to New Mexicans is probably one of the more compelling and convincing arguments. My complaint with it is it wasn't specific enough. Community solar is one of many avenues that solar is being developed in New Mexico. And I believe that money is available to more than just community solar. So it looked a little bit too, to say we're going to lose $150 million if not for community solar cap. That just didn't feel realistic to me. So a little bit more information from MNERD and their comments would have made their comments more effective, more convincing. Please stay at it, MNERD. We want to hear from you. And so then where I land is, again, where I started, want this program to grow organically to the size it should be. Which option supports that the most? Raising the cap means that we'll be quicker to do the next step, which is the step that really makes this real. It isn't raising the cap, is a communication. You don't get more projects, you don't get more development of new projects until you issue the RFP. So that's the event that matters. So having said that, and listening to you and talking myself through it, I think I'm leaning towards option B. Just because I'm not sure that what I put in option A really says what it needed to say. Commissioner Ellison, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do have one question for Mr. Fisk. We're reviewing the cap level at this point because we were required to by statute, but is there anything that would prevent us from raising the cap at a later date?
No, absolutely not. And actually, option A, states that that the commission will undertake a review and then issue a final order if the commission decides to change the cap based on that review of the additional information that comes in. The act in no way this isn't the only chance for the commission to consider the level of the cap. It's just a deadline for the commission to have considered the level of the cap. I think it's also closely related to the reports of the legislature. Like this is the time, November 1st, when the legislature wants to do a comprehensive review of whether there are any changes to the act needed and what the commission has been doing, how the program has proceeded so far. So a review of the cap was part of that, and the initial cap expires essentially November 1st. I would say in the sense that the commission is supposed to consider it again and not just go with the initial cap. The commission can keep it there, but it's not automatic. And so that's where we did the rulemaking proceedings to make a deliberate decision where we want to, if we want to stay with 200 or raise the cap.
Okay, but on our own accord, we could revise the rule at any time and increase that cap.
Yes, and I would say because this rule amendment actually provides for that to be done in a proceeding and then with a final order, that the commission could do it without further rulemaking. It's just that
Okay.
the initial cap was in this rule and so change, doing this, considering whether to change that at this time, required a rule.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, a few things I wanted to say about this. I agree with what Commissioner O'Connell has said about, what seems to be really important here is the actual competitive process for round two, when that starts, not so much when the cap is raised, because we could raise the cap ahead of the round. So to me, it seems largely symbolic, this decision that we have today. On one hand, on the positive side, it could signal that we are interested in an aggressive timeline for community solar, and I think we're all interested in seeing community solar go forward. On the other hand, I do have concerns that it could raise false expectations around when that round two is going to happen. In my view, what really needs to happen here is we need to see at least some of these projects actually be realized, then, gather some lessons learned, potentially revise the rule, possibly revise the tariff, the solar bill credit, if warranted, and then hold round two. I don't think we necessarily have to wait for all the projects to be completed and then to have a year of data. But I would like to see us have some lessons learned from some actual working projects. I too appreciated the comments of MNRD and their participation. My concern about the solar for all argument is that, my understanding is that based on the current slate of projects in round two, that, we know of, that there are roughly $120 million in interconnect costs for those existing projects. And my understanding is that MNRD is considering putting about 18 or having the ability to put $18 million out of that $156 million towards community solar. It just seems to me that there's no need to wait for a round two, that there's the ability to use that funding for the round one participants. All that being said, I somewhat prefer option A, but I can live with option B. I do think the main thing is our thinking around where do we need to be in order for a round two competitive process to happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it just word choice. I wouldn't say it's a symbolic vote, because no matter what we do, we're improving the ability to raise the cap. We're either going to raise it, or option A, as Mr. Fisk described, results in a more direct, easier, less time consuming process to raising the cap in the future. So
I agree.
either vote improves the situation in terms of cap. So again, for me, it's about value of communication, as Commissioner Aguilera highlighted, and I think it's a more direct, easier to understand communication to go ahead and raise the cap, but you know, you're right on the money that RFP is part of this organic process, and it's kind of one of those things we'll know we're ready for the next one. And it could just be, takes just a couple projects to get off and running, to know, hey, we need to look at the next round, so. So I guess that's a question. Is there any barrier that you see, Mr. Fisk, to that reality being true?
No.
Okay, thank you. That was my understanding, but I just thought I'd double check. Any other comments, Commissioner Aguilera?
No real other comments. Just want to acknowledge the good points that were made and note that I too understand that all of the solar for all money would not be dedicated to community solar, but I think the message is still the same, that this money should be put to work for New Mexicans' benefit, and I want to make it as easy as possible to do so.
I do have one question. Was there a draft of the rule change that would result from the second option? I just saw the red line for option 1.
I'm sorry, I didn't provide, I should provide an exhibit A for option B. It would be, and I can read from the proposed rule. I could even forward it right now. It would be the same as in the proposed rule, where it would add, if you'd like me to read the language, this is what would be option B, as a different exhibit A. Would the commission like me to do that? Just take a couple minutes.
That would be fine, but I just want to note that in the NOPR, we included an option 1 and an option 2, or maybe it was option A and B, but
yes,
we included the language for both in the NOPR. And so I don't think the language is changing here from that option 2.
No, it would not be, but I can read it nevertheless, if anyone would like me to.
That would be helpful if you could just briefly do that.
And I would also note that even though all the commenters decided to go with option A or option B, the NOPR provided that these are just the commission's proposals in the sense that, they provide sort of bookends, and that the commenters could provide any other alternatives that they wanted to. And some of them did provide some additional language or additional concerns, but I just want to make it clear, it wasn't, people were not limited to option A and option B. They just chose to choose one or the other. Okay, so under option B, and again, I'm reading from the proposed order, proposed rule, which you don't have in front of you. This is 17.9.573.11 statewide capacity program caps would read: the statewide capacity program cap effective November 1st, 2024 is 300 megawatts alternating current. This cap does not apply to applications and projects that have been processed in the commission's initial application selection process, as such applications and projects remain subject to the initial cap of 200 megawatts. The 300 megawatt cap will apply to the first selection process to be conducted after November 1st, 2024, and will be in addition to the 200 megawatt cap applied to the initial selection process, resulting in a total cap of 500 megawatts. The 300 megawatt cap is allocated among the service territories of the 3 qualifying utilities according to addressable market estimations. That's the same as the old rule. Subject to further refinement as follows. And P&M would go from 125 megawatts to 185. SPS would go from 45 to 70. EPE would go from 30 to 45. And then let's see, some language would be removed from paragraph 5, paragraph B, excuse me. And the new paragraph B would read, the commission may at its discretion reallocate the capacity cap among the territories of the utilities to avoid a significant shortfall of the capacity actually used vis-a-vis the capacity cap. That actually is similar to some of the language that was in there, but a little bit clearer. And that language is also in option. So B would change the same way in both option A and option B. Paragraph B would change that same way because that's unrelated to the size of the cap. And then paragraph C would read, the commission will review the cap on an annual basis. And that'd be it. And then anything else? That's it. Then paragraph E, I think, would be removed. Because that was actually said the initial statewide program capacity cap of 200 megawatts shall remain effective. That would be removed. So I hope that was clear. I can answer any questions about that. You know, sometimes it's hard to hear
One question, Mr.
rule
Fisk.
read and
Option B in stating that the commission will review the cap on an annual basis, would that give us the ability to make changes without needing to change the rule?
yes, that would. Yeah, yes, really. The act didn't specifically require, the act does require that our rules and have the initial cap and then revisit the initial cap. But since we're revisiting, if the commission adopts option A to revisit the cap through a non-rulemaking proceeding, the commission would be covered there to continue to be able to do it without holding another rulemaking.
Any other comments or questions? I see people working away, so I can vamp a little bit. What that reminded me of is one of the comments kind of fell into the come on man category, and we were one of the commenters trying to say subscriptions are the same as capacity allocations across utilities, but that's not convincing. Anyway, I'm just providing that just guidance as people are trying to be effective in their job. What are the kind of things that make a difference for when I'm evaluating these kind of things? Any other questions, comments? Would you like to move here?
I'll move to adopt option B for this item.
I'll second the motion to adopt B. We can also discuss amendments to that motion if you want, or proceed to voting. I think any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm likely to issue some comments in relation to this, just clarifying the kind of steps that I think are necessary to get to that second round.
Yeah, that sounds helpful. So sounds like we're ready for a vote, Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilar.
Aye.
The motion to approve option B, the order option B passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that, Mr. Fisk. Next up is I don't know how we got these community solars interrupted by an El Paso case, but case 210064 UT, application of El Paso or variance from fuel and power purchase power clause So we're talking about a request for rehearing and stay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. And I just want to apologize when it came to the saying that the comments were evenly split. I was thinking of the initial comments and I had that in mind. But as new comments came in, the response comments, there were a lot of new commenters and I didn't take that into account. So that's why I said they were evenly split. Sorry about that.
No, thank you for that. And like I say, I try to avoid the 4 out of 5 dentist survey type thing and really evaluate strength of the arguments.
And I want to clarify also that I am not looking at the number of comments. I was mostly reacting to, just trying to correct that. It wasn't.
And Commissioner, I'm glad you did because I just made a note to myself. We've been preparing the reports to the legislature and they asked me to prepare something about the state of this matter, anticipating what might happen. And I'm gonna have to change that because it's come out a little differently. And also I put that the comments were evenly split. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I need to go back to that report.
Thank you. Okay, so let's proceed to the next case. 21-00064 UC.
Let's get to the documents here. Okay, and I'll try to keep this brief because this is motion for hearing, motion for stay by the city. The commission is familiar. I have spoken to all of you about it, so I'll try to keep this short. The commission issued its order adopting the second recommended decision in this matter on May 20th. And May 20th. It doesn't. Yes, that's right. Okay. And yes, that was on May 20th. And the commission issued its order adopting the second RD on August 22nd. After exceptions were filed by the city of Las Cruces, which I was referred to as a city, and Mary Lee Souls and EPE responded to those exceptions. When the commission adopted the second recommended decision, the result of that was that the commission granted the variance that was requested in this matter by EPE concerning Winter Storm Uri in February 2021, and specifically concerning EPE's decision to use energy from Palo Verde Generating Unit 3 pursuant to a stipulated arrangement and former orders of the commission in place at the time that allowed EPE to use that as a resource, even though EPE does not have a CCN for that resource, subject to the flowing it through the fuel clause at the cost at a specially calculated price based on an index of gas prices for the month. And EPE did make use of that resource to serve customers during the Winter Storm Uri and the natural gas, I would say, crisis in terms of prices during that period when there were extreme low temperatures everywhere, including all over Texas. And the city and Mary Lee Souls had opposed the variance. So the variance would have allowed, it would be variance from the normal operation of EPE's fuel clause, which would have run the higher price through the fuel clause in 1 month the higher price of the Palo Verde energy, which again was based on gas prices, which were extremely high at the time. And for the relief of customers to spread that incremental cost instead of it all going through in the month in the bill for the month of February 2021 over 12 months. And this was something at the time that the other utilities had similar requests, which were granted, and some of the co-ops as well wanted to spread that cost out for the benefit of customers. And the city, Emerald Souls, opposed that, saying that, arguing that there was no authorization, despite the previous orders, criticizing those orders and saying that there wasn't any order in place at the time of February 2021 that allowed EPE to do that. And without getting, I'm trying to keep this short. So this order would reject those arguments. It would reject the motion for a hearing, would deny it, saying that actually there was such an order in place at the time, coming out of docket number 18 and docket number 18 0000 I think it was 16 or 6 UT that cited in this order. The hearing examiner noted that this arrangement was still in place, and it was at the proxy price that had been determined in the previous order, and that that is the counter to the argument that made by EPE that those previous orders had expired, and so this order would find that those were in place, and also that the hearing examiner found with regard to whether the city had raised the argument that even though the previous commission orders had allowed for the use of Palo Verde 3 with an assumption that whenever it would be used, it would simply be considered the most effective, cost-effective available resource, or even the least cost alternative at the time. The city argued that the hearing examiner had incorrectly found in the second RD that the resource was the most cost-effective resource when because there were cheaper resources available, possibly in the spot market, and this order would find that the city really didn't prove that was true, and also the most cost-effective resource includes other considerations other than the lowest cost, such as whether this was reliable energy, and the spot market did not, especially at that time, it was not particularly reliable, or there was given that there was a crisis in natural gas prices, EPE felt it was decided that it was better to have this reliable nuclear resource, and the hearing examiner agreed, and the commission agreed, and then so that takes care of the motion for rehearing. The motion for stay. This was a motion brought by the city to stay the effect of the order adopting the second RD, because EPE has begun to collect the additional incremental costs of about $5.7 million beginning in, I believe, June or July, that spread over 12 months. And the city is requesting that the commission stay that order so that it cannot be collected pending this motion and pending what the city says is a planned appeal of this motion. So there are 4 factors that the commission considers and the court considers when it comes to whether a stay should be issued. The most important generally is the likelihood that the city will prevail in the merits. And essentially, this order would simply incorporate what's discussed with regard to the motion for rehearing, because those arguments and discussion show that the city is very unlikely to prevail at an appeal. With regard to the factor of irreparable harm to the applicant, the city argues that it will be harmed. I'm sorry, will be harmed by the imposition of over the next 12 months this $5.7 million, because they claim it was not authorized by the commission, and that EPE chose that over more cost-effective alternatives. This order would respond that the city and I'm sorry, another argument raised by the city was that there would be an intergenerational issue, that customers of EPE that paid the higher prices, or that did not pay the high prices, but were customers in 2021 during Uri, may not be customers. There'd be new customers that will be paying for that higher, the more expensive energy. But the order would counter that the city is the only, city is the applicant for this stay, and that's the only party that's considered when it comes to this factor. And obviously the city has remained the same entity during all this time, so there's no intergenerational issue. And regarding the third factor, potential harm to other persons resulting from a grant of the stay, it would note that EPE has awaited the resolution of this matter since 2021. EP shouldn't have to wait through a potential appeal to work its way through the docket of the court. And EP is not requesting carrying costs, so it would lose the time value of the incremental costs. And then finally, the fourth factor, the public interest, would not be harmed by granting the stay. This order would argue that it does, would find that it does, that it would. A stay would harm the public interest because the commission had repeatedly authorized EPE to use this resource, and the commission's repeated authorizations were grounded in express or implied findings that such authorizations were in the public interest, and it is in the public interest for the commission to indicate to the public that such orders can be relied upon by utilities and other persons and entities. Sorry, I may have gone a bit long on that as well. I'll take any questions from the commission.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments, discussions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the presentation. The only comment I make is I think the order does a good job of explaining the reasons to deny both motions. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. And so I'll go ahead and move for approval of the order that denies the rehearing motion and stay.
I second.
Any further comment, discussions?
I guess maybe just one question, Mr. Fisk, the whole question arose when EPE applied to be able to distribute these costs over a longer period, a 24-month period, correct? And they had the ability to flow them through the fuel and purchase power adjustment clause immediately, but that would have led to rate shock to customers. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cameron,
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
aye.
Commissioner Ellison.
Aye.
The motion to approve the order passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great. And we have one more case that was led by Mr. Fisk, so I'll suggest we'll go ahead and do that and then take a break to refill the water bottle.
Yes, and this one will be very quick. I'm not even capable of rambling on about this one because they're it's such a short order. So this would be an order, as I alluded to with when discussing the final order in docket number 2494 UT, which was concerning amendments to the rule, the cap and the rule, et cetera. That I would also be presenting this order to open a new rulemaking to consider all the other, and not just the other, the commission could consider the cap in this rulemaking as well, all portions of the rule, because there's been we have had 2 years, approximately 2.5 years, I think, of experience. The commission has gained experience with regard to the operation of the rule. So has our program administrator in climb and program participants. And so it's a good time to revisit the rule. We've already received in a related docket some initial informal comments, which can be considered, which can be considered as formal comments, but can inform the commission in this case, if the commission would like to take administrative notice at some point. But I think the best way to start, and I know that some of the commissioners have commented on this previously, is with a workshop, because preparing a proposed order in this matter, which would begin the formal proceeding with an order issuing a NOPR and a proposed rule, coming up with a good proposed rule that includes potential changes to all the portions of the rule that commenters would like to comment on, that come from many sources. Like I said, Incline has a list of things they would recommend changing about the rule. And I know that program participants have had some suggestions for the rule. This is when we take those into account. And I think a workshop would be a good way to begin the process. This is the informal part of the process, to come up with a proposed rule that would be the most comprehensive proposed rule for considering for commenters to comment on in the formal part of the proceeding. So there are blanks in the order for the commission to put in. We can put in a date, and then further information will be provided by a single signature order. We don't have to put any date in this order. So however the commission would like to proceed, I'll go ahead. I'm finished and I will take questions.
Three minutes. Any questions, discussion, comment? I mean, I appreciate that you highlighted scheduling a workshop as part of this order.
Mr. Fisk, do we have a date for that workshop in this order?
No, that Commissioner Ellison, I left blanks there in case the commission wanted to discuss a date that would work. I don't know that I mean, it doesn't have to be all three commissioners, or, I mean, I can preside over it as well. I mean, really, there's no presiding over it. It's not a common hearing. But I thought, since this is a really comprehensive rulemaking proceeding, that some commissioners or all commissioners or maybe one commissioner would like to be there, and so we'd come up with a date.
My other question is, given that we don't yet have an active online community solar project, is it premature to open this rulemaking?
There will be some things that that the commission doesn't know, similarly to, we were discussing the cap. But a lot of the rule is really independent, unlike the cap, is independent of the size of the overall program. It really, the provisions go to how are we regulating the subscriber organizations, how do we need to sort of tune some of the things that are in some of the requirements and the criteria in the selection process. So those are things that can be considered independent of, those are areas where we've learned things so already, and they would pertain to another RFP or another application solicitation process. But there are lots of things in the rule, such as solar bill credit, where there would be, we don't need to know how big the program is to address those.
Okay, thank you.
So, ordering paragraph B says the commission hereby schedules a workshop for blank at blank. And it says additional information concerning the workshop will be provided via single signature order. So will we be scheduling it for a specific date in that signature, single signature order, or are you looking for us to provide a date today? And do you have any recommendations?
I don't. I think we want to, put it at least a month out. The reason I put it in today was that in case you wanted to discuss a date that would work for all three of you, if you're all planning to come, but we can also do it by single signature order. I can just get input from.
Can we change that just to say that a workshop will be scheduled via single signature order?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and then I guess just my 2 cents on all that. I think it is important to open the rulemaking now. I'd like to schedule a workshop as soon as reasonably possible. I know what you're saying about we should give a month. Then that lands us in the middle of November. We've got a busy month of November, so I would shoot for December for whoever is a single signature order of the October month. And then part of the reason why I think we should proceed as quickly as possible with this is, first of all, we've had a huge round of comments already. That led us to clarifying, let's just do 2 issues with the rulemaking we just did. The other is you hit on Mr. Fisk exactly why I think we should move as quickly as possible with this. Is this really, I think, sets the table for the next RFP, because I think we do have a lot of valuable lessons learned from that process, and we might learn more after projects get online, but next big step really in the rulemaking process, I think, is RFP. So anyway.
Yes, I think that's the case. Yes, absolutely.
I think it makes sense that, there have been some lessons learned from incline and the whole competitive process. So I see the logic there. I just don't want to preclude our, being able to get data from projects as they come online and make adjustments to the rule. I know this doesn't issue a NOPR, and once a NOPR is issued, we have 18 months. Is that correct to
Yes.
to change the rule? So hopefully we would be able to accomplish both things, get an early start and discuss lessons learned from the competitive procurement, yet still be able to incorporate lessons learned from the projects as they come online.
Yes. I think that will be, yes, this rulemaking, though it will cover a lot of things that aren't covered by the review, by the that don't require more information to come in about the size of the program. Some of it will, and I think all that together will be coming in at the same time. And then we already have information about several parts of the rule that could be considered, before new information comes in.
Okay, so any more comments, discussions? And I'll move for approval of the order as proposed with the revision suggested, which is the commission will schedule the workshop via single signature order in the ordering paragraph B.
Second.
Any more before we vote? No. Mr. Cameron.
Commissioner Allison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilera.
Aye.
The motion to approve the order with the revision language in paragraph B passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. And then it's 11:42 right now, so let's come back at 10 till noon. Are you ready, Jim? You ready? Okay, we're back. Next up on the agenda is case number 24-00088 UT. Presentation by Mr. Gedko. I think it's your job to transfer the belt.
With respect to that, I'd just like to say it's not very fun wrestling Mr. Tupler in the hallway.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's a bear. So anyway, the case that we're gonna be discussing is a formal complaint of Dale Smith against Central New Mexico Electric Co-op. Floor is yours, Mr. Jacob.
Good morning still. This case is the formal complaint of Dale Smith against Central New Mexico Electric Cooperative, CNMEC. A complaint was filed in March of 2024 in which it was alleged that CNMEC was using extrapolation guessing to determine the figures used for billing purposes. It was alleged that CNMEC should be responsible for electronic damages to the complainant's computers and appliances due to service interruptions and restarts. And it was alleged that CNMEC did not have a plan to address the service interruptions that occur on its system. Subsequent to certain responses by the co-op, the issues were introduced of whether the co-op had properly reported its major interruptions of service. And that is a term that is used in the rules. And the question was raised as to whether CNMEC had complied with commission rules with respect to meter testing. What the commission foremost needs to determine in this matter is whether the allegations the first three that I listed by the complainant had validity, which were whether there was guessing with respect to meter reads, whether the co-op was responsible for damages, and whether the co-op had a plan to prevent and address service interruptions. There are two alternate orders. Well, there are two orders in this matter, two proposed orders that we can consider alternates. Both of those orders find that with respect to the initial allegations by the complainant, they are not valid allegations, that the co-op did not use extrapolation guessing for the complainant's meter reads due to the use of its Aclara automated meter information system, that the co-op is not responsible for damage to the complainant's computers and appliances because the commission does not have jurisdiction to reach that matter. That is a matter for the district courts, and that CNMEC does have appropriate maintenance and inspection procedures in place, and does have processes in place to address existing or future service interruptions on its system. So with respect to those matters, the two orders agree. Where they diverge is on the questions that were introduced during the question and answer and response process with the co-op. I'm sorry, I'm just pausing for a phone. During the response process from the co-op, one matter that arose was that the co-op admitted that it had not been in compliance with the commission's rules regarding the required reporting of the major interruptions of service. There are two rules with respect to that came into play. One requires a communication with the commission within 2 hours. The other one requires a written report within 3 business days. As I stated, the co-op admitted that they had not been in compliance with that, but stated that they have educated their personnel on the need to do that and have instituted processes to correct that moving forward. The second matter that causes the alternate orders to exist is, well, first on that first one, everybody agrees that, okay, there was a violation of those reporting measures. Corrective measures have been instituted according to the co-op's testimony. So the question remains as to whether the co-op should be, a fine should be levied against the co-op for those two reporting violations. So that's where we will get one alternate order that says they should be fined the minimum fine of $100 for each of those reporting violations. The other order says that no, they have instituted corrective measures and fines do not need to be instituted with respect to those admitted violations. I'm getting to the end. The last piece then is the matter that was raised with respect to whether the co-op was in compliance with the rule that requires in-service performance tests of meters. One alternate order does not address that issue. It is not seen as an issue that is necessarily appropriate for this docket. The other order finds that the co-op was in violation of the requirement to conduct an in-service performance test of a meter once every 8 years and chooses to levy a fine of the minimum $100 fine against the co-op for being in violation of that rule. So in summary, both orders dismiss the fundamental allegations of the initial complaint, but one order chooses to issue a fine for the failure to comply with the reporting rules. Well, to levy two fines, one for each of the reporting violations for a total of $200. And that same alternate order finds that they were in violation of the requirements for meter testing and imposes a third fine of $100 for being in violation of that requirement. I understand that there will probably be discussion among the commissioners, and I stand for questions to support that discussion.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions, discussion, advocacy for one of these choices or the other?
I'm happy to start out, Mr. Chair, to I suppose advocate for proposed number order 2, which is what I've proposed here. I see the $100 fines as a de minimis fine. I really do not see how a $300 fine would cause any hardship on a co-op or its members. I think it's an acknowledgement that I'm not aware of how long this practice has been going on, that they have not been reporting outages. Most likely it's been happening for a very long time, and it just so happened that we had a complainant that brought this issue to our attention. I think it's fair to send the message that we have rules for a reason, and they should be followed. And I think this goes towards sending that signal, apart from the reliability notice issues. There is the issue of the in-field, in-service testing of meters. And I do understand that that the co-op has put in AMI meters and is getting meter reads in that fashion over power line communications. But getting meter reads is not the same thing as doing an in-field test of the meter. Of course, they're able to see, is the meter working or not? But, you know, in-field testing goes well beyond that to issues of how, you know, how is the meter calibrated? Is it properly calibrated? You know, I do acknowledge that our rule evidently hasn't been revised in a very long time. ANSI standards do require that analog or electromechanical meters be field tested every 8 years, which is where I'm sure our rule got its cue from. But I believe that those same ANSI standards would have a less frequent requirement for other types of meters, such as digital meters. I also think that doing a statistical test of the meters rather than every single meter, you know, may be reasonable. However, our current rule contains neither of those modifications. So my belief is that a utility should either follow the rules, or it should request a variance, or it should propose a change to the rules. And that would help us all by improving the rules for everyone. Ignoring the rules because they think it's too hard, you know, I believe is not the right approach. And so that's why I'm proposing the measures in order number 2.
Commissioner Aguilera, did you have any?
Yeah, several things, but first I want to get one clarification. Commissioner Ellison mentioned in-field testing. Is that how the rule reads, Mr. Getko? I'm was trying to find it, but I was looking at the rule, what's written in the order about the rule, and I see in-service performance test. And so to me, that didn't necessarily mean in field. I think in service.
Right, perhaps I misspoke. It does say in-service performance test.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that clarification. In that case, I would just say to that part, I'm hesitant to say that it means in field. I think here the co-op has explained that it monitors the meter. It's an advanced meter and it monitors it in real time. And so I think for that part, I felt like I don't have enough information here to determine that there is a violation. And so I would want more information before making that determination. And I'm not sure that we actually need to go there. I think, this we also have IOUs who are, potentially installing AMI and have some of it installed. And I think this question about whether they need to go every 8 years to check it is something that I would rather think about in a larger setting. I don't want to say either way. I mean, I know that monitoring is not the same as testing. And anyway, I think I'll leave it there for now on that issue. On the first issue about I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Which is the first one? The first violation.
The first issues that were raised, you're referring to the complainant raised questions about whether there was guessing with respect to the meters, whether the co-op should be responsible for electronic damages.
Oh, I'm sorry, it came back.
Great.
So the other issue of potential violation is about the notifications for major outages. So here I see a co-op that is saying we have not been reporting those. We recognize there is an issue. We've trained our staff on what they need to do and taken steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. That satisfies my concern here, because they're recognizing there's a problem and fixing it. And so I am not inclined to penalize them for that. I think, I know I'm not telling you anything new when I say that co-ops are different than the regulated IOUs in that they don't have as many resources. The other way that they're different is that their customers are spread out. They could be like 50 miles out or more just for one customer. And so I'm not, again, not trying to prejudge the issue, but I'm not convinced that with the information here that they need to go out into the field and physically, remove the meter and test it. I think that's an open question. And so I think there is a bit of an issue here with respect to flexibility and potential being too strict on the rules and creating a strict regulatory environment here. And so I prefer to offer some flexibility here, given that the co-op is cooperating and has solved the issues that exist. The last thing I'll say about the second order, which is a concern to me, is that I'm not reading here that there is an order to show cause. It looks like it's directly fining the utility, and I think we normally give, before we issue a fine, give an opportunity to explain why there is no good cause to issue a fine. So that, I don't know if Mr. Getko, you could explain there. I know that we issued a fine sometime last summer to a cooperative, but that order included an intermediate step to issue an order to show cause.
If that is standard practice, and that is a deficiency in the order that I drafted, and I would take that as a learning experience.
I'll go ahead and weigh in here. I agree with a lot of what I heard here. First, our rules are there for a reason. They're important. They're only as strong as our willingness to enforce them. I also agree that co-ops are different. So, for me, issuing a penalty is always about what's important to affect the behavior of the entity I'm regulating. And because co-ops are just fundamentally different, it's a different question for me about whether I want to impose a penalty or a fine. I also agree that the only clear violation of rules is the violation that the co-op admitted to, which were the reporting requirements. And in that case, I know we've penalized and fined a co-op before. This is a very different situation. In this case, the co-op admitted a violation of the rules, also explained how they had changed their behavior in response to their own realization of that. So that's the behavior I want to see. So at the point we're at in the process right now, I don't get to where I think it, other than noting as a violation, the rule's important, must comply with the rule going forward. That feels to me like the correct spot to land in this moment. If it happens again, then that's a whole different story. So that's just where I'm at. I didn't know who was order 1 and order 2, but I knew I'd probably end up being the swing vote here. So I'm in favor of 1, but.
Well, I'd like to further comment. I mean, it sounds like, I guess my interpretation of CNMEC statement that they're monitoring the system through their AMI communications, that does not sound to me like meter testing. So in-service performance test, I just did not get the indication from that statement that they were performing some sort of diagnostics on the meter. And, so I would, another option here is to table the matter and ask Mr. Gedko if we could get some more clarity around that issue, whether they're monitoring via the AMI power line communications gives them information equivalent to a meter field test. Whether we could consider it an in-service performance test. I don't think when a field test is done, I don't think removing the meter is necessary, but they've got equipment and they test the meter in place. I have great doubts that they're testing calibration and similar matters remotely. So, and I do take your comments that, they have admitted to not notifying us of outages and are taking steps to correct it. And obviously that is what we want. And, I think the de minimis nature of these fines is also taking that into account. I mean, $300 is sort of on the order of a traffic ticket to an individual, maybe a little bit of a stiff traffic ticket, but it's sort of what an individual might pay for an infraction. I don't see it as being a hardship for a company. So my preferred approach would be to table the matter, ask Mr. Gedko to find out that additional information, and then come back next time. So I'd like to see if I have any support for that proposal.
I don't know what Commissioner Aguilera's views on this are, but I agree with the statement he made that this question about whether being able to look at how a meter is performing remotely achieves the level of testing is a much bigger question than I want to dig into on a complaint on one co-op. I agree, things are changing, technology's changed, so maybe the meters testing requirement also needs to change. I think it'd be a mistake to weigh in on that here. So I'm not in favor of tabling. I'm still in favor of option one.
And, you know, I'll just, I mean, I share the same view here. I think I don't want to say that this is not an important issue that needs to be addressed, but I do think that if this issue is undertaken, it has to be done in the larger context of including other stakeholders, because it will affect them as well. I think that is preferable. I'm not sure, given other priorities, that this is one that I would suggest we undertake at this time.
I've got two of them.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we're getting the picture that perhaps a review of our service standard rules, which govern issues like frequency of meter testing, are in order. I'm not sure about the appetite or the priority level, but I think that there's sufficient information to consider, looking into a revision of those rules. The main reason I don't like the first order is that it is completely silent on the meter testing issue. So I'm not likely to support it.
Understand that point of view. And I respect that point of view. Having said that, I'm going to move for approval of option one.
Option one is the one that does not levy fines. Is that correct, Mr. Getko?
Yes.
Just,
That's correct.
okay, I will second.
Further discussion, Mr. Cameron?
Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellison. So the motion to approve the order, which is option one, passes on a vote of 2-1.
Consent agenda to regular agenda. It's case number 2400252 UT. Application for reliability determination for the Crossroad Hobbs Roadrunner transmission line. Presentation led by Ms. Lang from OGC. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Kate.
Good morning,
The
Commissioners.
floor is yours.
Before the commission is docket number 2400252 UT. This is the matter where RITA, the New Mexico Renewable Energy Transmission Authority, has requested a reliability determination from the commission under NMSA 1978, section 6216-4B8. The application was filed on September 20th of this year. I will go give just a short run through. The application provides the following statements in support of of its application. That RETA is an instrument of the state established by the RETA Act in 2007 to acquire and participate in transmission projects in New Mexico to bring renewable energy generation to the market. Applicant states that it seeks a reliability determination from the commission pursuant to the RETA Act. As such, a determination is required before it may exercise its power of eminent domain for acquiring property or rights of way for public use. It states that the project does not materially diminish electric service reliability of the transmission system in New Mexico. The project is approximately 135 miles, 345 kilovolt double circuit electric transmission line in the eastern interconnection that connects the Crossroads substation to the Hobbs substation in the counties of Roosevelt and Lee, New Mexico, respectively, and the Hobbs substation to the Roadrunner substation, both located in Lee County, New Mexico. The project will interconnect with the regional transmission system in eastern and southeastern New Mexico. The application also states that should the commission determine that there is a requirement for a third party to review the ITP report, which is attached to the application as Exhibit C, RETA requests that the commission order it to engage a third party expert. Based on this and several that I did not get into the details, RETA is requesting the commission for an order determining that the project does not materially diminish the electric service reliability of the transmission system in New Mexico. Office of General Counsel has drafted 2 orders. The first one essentially mirrors 3 previous orders from going back to 2017. That the essence of it is that the commission requires RETA to file into the docket a compliance notice that it has complied with all notice requirements as required by the statute. This is not explicitly delineated or required in the statute, but previous commission orders have required that. It also requires that RETA needs to do that within 20 days of the issuance of an order. It also orders staff to file a position to review the application and to file a position statement. And it also directs RETA to engage a outside expert should staff find the need to. The second order does it's essentially the same order, except that it does not address the notice requirement to be filed into the docket. And I stand for questions.
Thank you for that and that presentation. Any discussion, questions?
I wanted to explain what there are 2 orders, but if you had any technical questions, okay. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to explain that I certainly agree with issuing an order directing staff to evaluate whether the transmission line at issue does not materially diminish electric service reliability of the transmission system in New Mexico. And I will vote for any order that gets that process started. So I think both orders here are ones that I would vote to approve. I want to highlight that I disagree with the language in the first order that requires RETA to file proof of compliance with the notice and hearing provisions, including providing notice to the DOJ, because I believe that this type of requirement creates a difficult regulatory environment, and I'll explain why. First, though, I want to note that I understand that council here is following prior commission orders on this point, and I appreciate that. I think you're doing the right thing in proposing the orders that have been issued before, essentially. And nevertheless, I think that the prior orders were misguided. So the RETA Act requires the commission to ensure that there is no material diminishing of the electric system with the transmission project that is being proposed. And then also and it also explains that the commission does not have jurisdiction over RETA or its facilities. And section 6216A4E says this very clearly, says the authority, meaning RETA, and any eligible facilities acquired by the authority are not subject to the supervision, regulation, control, or jurisdiction of the Public Regulation Commission. So the law essentially assigns to us a responsibility to conduct, what I'll call like a system impact study. And but it also explains that RETA does not fall under our jurisdiction. And as a result, I believe that it is not our responsibility to check how RETA administers its obligations under its own act. So I quickly, I'll also note that the RETA Act requires RETA to provide various parties notice of its projects, and that includes notice to the PRC. However, nowhere in the act does it explain that the PRC is responsible for ensuring that RETA has met its obligations. In fact, that same section describes a process for challenging RETA and how RETA and the district courts would adjudicate those challenges. And that section leaves us out entirely. So to kind of boil it down is recognizing that prior orders required RETA to provide proof that they have issued this notice. I think that the notice exceeds our responsibilities under the application. And when we make requirements that are beyond our responsibilities, we create an unnecessarily burdensome regulatory environment for the PRC and RETA. And so I see this notice requirement as us driving outside of our lane. And so I want to get us back into our lane. And I do recognize that this is not a huge deal. I think that if we tell RETA to provide proof that they have issued this notice, they'll probably just provide it. So the idea that I have here is larger than this. It's, we have a lane, let's stay in it.
Good fences make good neighbors. Commissioner Elson, did you have any?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I had a comment on a completely different part of this order. So in both versions of the order, we have in decretal paragraph A, staff shall endeavor to identify a consultant with the necessary expertise. And then decretal paragraph B, we have, RETA shall engage a third-party expert. And, it wasn't clear to me, would they be engaging the same third-party expert that staff is identifying, or would this language, does it indicate that they can choose a third-party expert themselves?
The way it's, so decretal paragraph mirrors the language used in the application. However, in the past, in previous applications, staff has identified the expert and in conjunction with RETA, and then RETA basically pays for the expert. So it would be, in the past, it's been the one and the same.
Oh, okay, it's just a little unclear to me how it's written. I mean, it would be more clear if we said in B, Rita shall engage the third party expert identified by staff.
I agree. We could,
Because I tend to like the model that we've used elsewhere in our IRP processes and elsewhere, that we identify the contractor and the company who needs the work done pays for it. And I think it's reasonable just to make that a little more clear. But I'm happy with what Commissioner Aguilera is saying, and I tend to agree that we don't need to require Rita to do things in our order that statute is requiring them to do anyway. So I'm fine with dropping that.
Yeah, thank you for your discussion, and I agree with everything, and I agree with your first point. I think the most important thing for us is let's not stop the ball from moving. But I think you both made really good improvements to the process we've used in the past. So thank you for educating us on the process used in the past. So anyway, I'll go ahead and move. I don't think we have a version of the order that reflects both changes, right?
Well, there's one that requires a notice and there's one that does not, or requires proof of a notice, and one that does not.
Yeah, so, but I also want to capture Commissioner Ellison's language
Yeah.
improvement.
that was my question. And how, so we are going with the second, I guess, the order that does not require the notice.
Yes.
And
So
what could you tell me?
B, I mean, so here's what I would propose, B, it says if staff's position statement states that it needs to obtain the services of a consultant as referenced herein, Rita shall engage the third party expert identified by staff.
I will add that to the order that does not include the notice requirement and
Yes.
file. Okay. I mean, presuming after we vote on it.
Right, and I'm assuming in that process, staff is talking to Rita along the way, but I don't think we need to include that here, but just want to make it clear to staff, we're trying to harmonize with Rita, so we'll work with them as you're identifying need for and who the expert is. Okay, so back to motion. So we will move the order that does not include the historic notice provision and makes it clear that Rita will engage the third party expert identified by staff.
A second.
Just make sure you got that. Okay, you're good. All right. Any other questions, discussions? All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Commissioner Ellison,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilera.
Aye.
The motion to approve order 2 with the changes proposed for section B passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are on discussion and potential action. We have Mr. Cameron and his Rogues Gallery up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I have for you is consideration of an updated resolution, which delegates authority for State Record Center and archives filings. This comes up, I was going to say mostly, but maybe ever, as in my experience with when we're doing rulemakings and it's time to actually send the rule over and get it published. Currently, we have a resolution that only lists 3 out of the 8 people there's 9 people in the OGC. One of them is not included in the new one, but there's only 3 who are listed on the old one. The newer version that you have in front of you lists basically everybody other than our appellate specialist who wouldn't really have much occasion to do rulemakings. To be able to transmit those over. This is a requirement provided the rule also that has this requirement contained in it where the State Record Center requires some kind of a delegation of authority from whoever the entity is that's trying to file these rules. So I also outlined in this version, there's a clean version and a highlighted version to show you that I made some other just smaller kind of stylistic changes, but the main change here is to add in the names of the other attorneys and paralegal who are in OGC.
Great, thank you. Any questions about this discussion? And then I guess you could, after this, could you clarify what you're asking us?
Sure.
Mr. Cameron, is it necessary to list individuals in this manner, or could it be possible to just say members of the office of general counsel?
Commissioner Ellison, I think we need to actually have the list of the names in there instead of just the division. I mean, that's what we've done before. That seems to have worked. I don't like to change it up and test them out and see if they'll do it another way. So I think I see what you're getting at, which is if we put OGC in there, then if things change over time, we're always kind of covered. But I think we need to list the names.
Thank you. I had the same question internally, but was not going to ask it. I just figured it. So these are, well, I'm seeing Miss Lecoq here and I don't see her listed here. So I am wondering if that.
That was just not to exclude her for any reason other than she is the appellate specialist and would have probably no reason to ever be working on rulemakings or filing anything. So that's the only reason why.
Sounds good to me. Probably shouldn't have asked that either. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, that was my question too. What's wrong with Miss Lecoq?
I could put her in there if you want. If I'd put her in there, then I bet you would ask, why is she in there?
Yeah, so just could you clarify what you're asking us to do?
What I'm asking you to do is to approve this new resolution. It's updated with a number also reflecting the date in our highly technical resolution numbering system. And this would be a resolution delegating authority to the people who work in OGC to go ahead and be able to transmit rule and record filings to the State Record Center and Archives Administrator.
Thank you. So I'll move for adoption of the resolution that you proposed. OGC has proposed here today.
I second.
Ready to vote?
Commissioner Ellison?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Aye.
The resolution 10324, which delegates authority with respect to State Record Center and Archives filings, passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is a Supreme Court case with a discussion led by Ms. Lecoq, who I personally highly value and am delighted to be working with here at the PRC.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Mr. Chair. Never.
We'll see what you say now after this. Commissioners, we have kind of an interesting matter before you today. Just to summarize quickly, there was a Court of Appeals decision that came out in April finding that quasi-judicial immunity applies to public agencies that serve an adjudicatory function. The outcome of this affects us. The state agency involved in that case is the New Mexico Racing Commission. And they act in a little bit of a different capacity than the PRC does. They deal mostly with licensing, disciplinary issues. And the PRC is a little bit broader, as you know, than that. So I believe that the court should hear from the PRC in an amicus brief about the function that the PRC serves and how this decision, which is now the Supreme Court, would affect this agency. So I have joined tentatively with the State Ethics Commission in writing an amicus brief we have to present a motion to the Supreme Court for them to consider an amicus brief, and then we also have to include the brief. So we have both a motion for leave to file and the proposed amicus brief before you. And I am in the, because it is the discretion of the commission to retain competent attorneys to represent the commission in any legal proceeding, I am asking for a vote on whether we can join the amicus brief of the State Ethics Commission and file this with the Supreme Court on Friday, tomorrow.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Do we know what other state agencies will be behaving similarly?
It is just the State Ethics Commission and us.
And I appreciate that presentation, and I read the draft, and I understand what that's about and what you're asking us to do here. Any other questions or discussion, comments?
And Ms. Lecoq, just for the avoidance of doubt, this matter solely concerns the state Civil Rights Act's claims brought under the State Civil Rights Act, and whether individuals and state agencies may be held liable under that act.
Partially, Commissioner, yes. The question really before the court, and I can read it to you, is, and it's in here, apologize. The court is being asked to answer, is judicial immunity a defense available to public bodies sued under the New Mexico Civil Rights Act? So it's really just looking under the CRA, yes, and public bodies, because we already have that answer for individuals. So yeah.
I don't have any questions. Just want to say, thank you for your work here and ensuring that the agency is protected. Appreciate it.
Okay, based on that discussion, I will move for approval of the PRC filing an amicus brief in this case.
I second.
Commissioner Ellison?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Aye.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Aye.
The motion to approve the filing of the brief passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Lecoq, my respect and admiration for you has only grown.
Thank you.
Unlike Mr. Cameron. Next up is communications with Chief of Staff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just a brief update. Don't need to spend a lot of time. I think our staff is, I would normally say putting their money where their mouth is, but that's not the right analogy for government employees. But their work speaks for themselves. And so I'm very proud that my updates have been shorter and shorter because you're hearing more and more from our very competent staff. So with that introduction, last time I told you that we would have an RFP issued shortly. I am here to say that our RFP is issued for e-docket and also, if possible, document management, litigation management. They're all in one, because if there's a solution out there that does it all in one, that's what we would like to see. So that closes in November. spread it far and wide. People who want to respond, or corporations that want to respond to that, to give us good e-docket system, please take a look at that. It's on our website. Next, I'd like to highlight that we are in fact doing our PRC seminar again, internally called PRC Seminar Palooza. That's not the official name, but it holds a place in my heart. That'll be November 4th and 5th. As I said last time, panels moderated by all 3 commissioners. We have Chief Justice Thompson confirmed to speak on Monday afternoon about the PRC and the Supreme Court. I think it's going to be a really good seminar. So registration should be open very shortly. We're just confirming last details on that. And then last but not least, kind of an announcement for the public, because everybody who works here already knows. Verizon is apparently having some national issues, and that means some of our calls may have been missed or sent straight to voicemail or not gone through at all. So if people are having a hard time connecting to us here at the PRC, please be patient, shoot us an email. That's probably the best way until some of the issues get worked out. And last but not least, related to that, the way that we discovered that is our IT department has been doing a very good job of identifying ways to save money. And as part of that, we've replaced about 50 employees' phones at no cost to the agency. And that means that we got to test out Verizon's network and learn that they're having issues with it. So all that being said, I'm happy to stand for questions.
So here's a new phone. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Thank you for that update. I didn't have any questions. Commissioners, did you have any?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I just, want to make a comment about a new e-docket system and how happy this makes me to eventually have it. And it's not, well, part of it is because I really despise our current one, but the part that really makes me hopeful here is that I think what this means is better commission decisions. Being able to have easy access to the information that you need as a party to make a strong argument in any case goes a long way. It trickles down to how I make my decisions. And so if the parties have better information, I feel like I could make better decisions. And I think having a system that is user-friendly where, just an everyday New Mexican can come and search is just invaluable, because that's a tool that we can use to engage the public. It can help a customer who is having trouble and wants to file a complaint. If they have the tools to equip them to make better arguments, I think that's a good thing for the public interest. So, I really hope that we get a lot of responses here, but more than that, I just can't wait till we have a new e-docket. So, thank you.
And I would just comment as well. I know one of the goals behind our doing this is to make it easier to access to the public. Right now, a member of the public has to register, and hopefully folks who are responding to the RFP will come up with ways to make access easier.
All right. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then last but not least is communications with commissioners. Commissioner Ellison, do you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just came back from a very good workshop run by Northwestern University on regulatory law and economics. And I've got a bunch of slides from that, and maybe I can figure out where to put those in some sort of a repository so that others here at the PRC can access them. There were a lot of good topics, including return on equity and capital structure and markets and all sorts of worthwhile things. So I'll try to figure out where to put those and let people know where they are so they can access them. I did participate on a long call yesterday with this Washington Action Committee. And I guess the biggest thing that was discussed is that the Senate Energy Committee has come up with a bipartisan bill that would amend the Federal Powers Act in several ways. One of the ways is it would establish a process for interregional cooperation and cost allocation of transmission. It would be a new section in the Federal Powers Act. It seems that the committee is unhappy with, and Commissioner Aguilera, I'm sure, knows more about this than I do, with the current FERC policy that a line cannot be built if there's a party who benefits even a little and doesn't pay for that line. So the Senate committee members were unhappy with this and felt that, gee, if somebody benefits a little, then and they don't pay, we shouldn't just stop the whole project. So they have a remedy for that. The chances of that bill passing this year, sound like they're not that great given the amount of time, but at least it seems impressive that there's a bipartisan agreement in the committee to move forward on it.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I attended that same Northwestern last year, and so it's funny because you were talking about the value of building a network to society might exceed just the computation of cost and benefit among who pays, right? So that was one of the big takeaways I had from there. So I thought it was valuable too. I'm glad you were able to do that. And then, we don't have any hearings before the next meeting. Next meeting's the 17th, but we're planning to head to San Diego for the CREPC YRAB conference. That's going to be a very interesting set of discussions. And again, it's about building the network that we use for electricity. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things. First, there's the West Tech process, which is Western transmission planning. That's running parallel to or hopefully complementary with whatever folks are doing on the order 1920. But there will be public engagement, and they're close to, at the CREPC meeting, it'll actually be on Monday, October 21st. There will be a meeting of that group to help clarify next steps in that process. If you're interested in transmission planning in the West and West Tech, and that's WESTTEC, particularly, there's going to be a public opportunity for the public to weigh in, watch the process, whatever, on December 10th. So go to the Western Interstate Board webpage if you're interested in that. Similarly, a big boil to ocean study on transmission planning out west came out recently. I find it to be fascinating. There's a lot of implications in there, not just for the West, but New Mexico. It shows what a transmission build out might be if you want to get to a 95% decarbonized grid in the West. And there are some projects in New Mexico that are in here. So again, encourage folks who are thinking about 1920, look at that report. And there's a kickoff for that next week, October 8th. There's going to be a webinar. So if you're interested in the Connected West, they have their own webpage, and that'll give you opportunity to sign up for a webinar on that. And then not directly transmission related, but similar to this Western advancement concept is the West-wide Governance Pathways Initiative, so WWGPI, or they just refer to themselves as Pathways, reached another significant milestone recently. They put out a guidance document for what they're calling Step 2, which is formation of a regional organization. It's a lengthy document. It was developed using comments from a really robust public comment session. It's not the final document. They're still very much interested in further analysis and comment by interested parties. So anyway, that will lead eventually to a Step 2 guidance document, and it will also inform legislative activities in California. So big milestone, and now's another moment where if you're interested in that, great time to weigh in. So WWGPI is hosted on the Western Interstate Energy Board's webpage. So they don't have their own webpage. If you're interested, you can enter it by going through the Weeb, and you can search Weeb, YRAB, CREPSI, all that good stuff. And then finally, I just thought, it's fall, a lot of fun things happen in the fall in New Mexico, but it's also Fat Bear Week. So I just wanted to recognize anyone who celebrates. That's a fun contest on the Katame National Park webpage where you get to pick which bear that's about to go hibernating looks best as a fat bear. So I enjoyed that, thought I would share.
Well, thank you for that. I just have a couple of updates for you. So last week I attended the Western Energy Markets Governing Body meeting, and then the joint WEM Governing Body and CAISO Board meeting. And then I was in a panel discussion with Chair Williamson of Nevada and Commissioner Thompson of Arizona. And so we gave an update, as to how things are going in our state, and had a really, really good discussion, and a good opportunity to meet and network with the WM governing body and the CAISO board. So that was a successful trip. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that a couple of days ago, Brattle issued a study. It's a comparative analysis of EDAM and Markets Plus design features. So this was prepared for PacifiCorp, and in the study, Brattle goes through some of the key design differences of both markets, and essentially explains, there are some benefits here in EDAM, there are some benefits here in Markets Plus, or things that might be better. It kind of seems like it might also depend on your situation. If you're a power marketer with a lot of transmission capacity rights or if you're a transmission provider. So it's worth taking a look. So just that's all I had to share. Once again, thank you for the discussion today.
Thank you for distributing that. That's very helpful.
Agreed. Any further discussion, any objection to adjourning? We are adjourned.